it's me again. Oh my goodness, take two. I didn't realize like my microphone wasn't fully plugged in. As a result, it went to some other microphone. Like this wasn't that one. It was like this one in the screen, which sounded like I was far away. I couldn't believe it. Today is May 10th, 2022. And that means it's after hours, and MetaMaterials indeed did release their Q1 earnings statement. Today I will discuss what pertains really to the special dividend and the oil, but I will touch upon a couple things I found interesting with the Q1 statement. If you'd like more pertinent information about the Q1 to MetaMaterials itself, I highly recommend Uncle Smokey Stock Trades or Buy the Dip Terry. Well, we do have some big news, and I'm glad I haven't quite finished editing this. It's 5:30. No, it's almost 6 o'clock. It's almost 6 o'clock. I haven't finished editing this. But we have some exciting news. According to the PR from the earnings report, it says the audit is complete. Woo! So guess what? We can cross some off. We can cross off some stuff. At least number one, we can cross off. We are officially on number 2. At least number 2 now. We're officially on number 2. With this official PR, the audit is done. Hooray! I can finally cross it off the list. No more question mark. It's actually done. We're on to step number 2 now. Hopefully step number 3 within the next couple of weeks here. But I'm so glad at least, again, the audit is done. And here's some official PR about it. Hooray! Q1 statement. It's mostly cookie cutter, as you can see here. They talk about, held for sale or spin out. Yes, we know. They talk about, again, the $70 million book asset value, which we know. Again, you'll see this $70 million come up as FUD time and time again. We know that oil that is underdeveloped and non-producing has a $0 book value. ConocoPhillips has the same model. They will not assign a book value to those assets. As a result, it again says, $72 million for the book value of the oil and gas assets held for sale or spin out. What is interesting on this statement was the fact that the Tool incident was talked about. Tool is a band I like, but the Tool incident refers to when they were drilling the A25 well, that one of the tools, the bits just broke off and stuck in there. I hear as a result they weren't able to get the actual well data and well logs they needed from that test well. Thus there were some lawsuits. And then this pertains to the countersuit against Torch for the legal fees involved for that specific company to this lawsuit. So they countersued Torch and then just put a lien on the Oro Grande property for $104,000, which is chump change. Even in the, low, ridiculously low term of millions, $100,000 isn't that much. So we have that, but we've known about that for quite some time. That was in the 2021 Torchlight 10K. That was in the lawsuit was in the Q3 Meta. This has been in basically every Q statement, this particular lawsuit with the company about the Tool incident. But they did talk more about the Tool incident in this one, which they haven't talked about the particular Tool incident. They talked about the companies suing and the lien and the amount, but it's interesting to see it's based on that Tool incident with the A25 well that dates back pre-2020. And this picture, you can see the working interest and revenue interest that Torchlight has. Torchlight now being Hudspeth operating, or Hudspeth Oil Company. We have a 49.9% revenue interest in the Oro Grande. Revenue interest is royalties. That's our money after the royalties are taken out for the royalty holders, being University Lands, McCabe, and which is under Magdalena, and then 5% others. We have a 66.5% working interest on the property. That's bills, but if you take out the royalty holders and you sell excluding royalty holders, that's our amount. So I've done videos where I'll do and let's talk dividend calculations based on these two numbers. They wind up being pretty close to each other, within a few dollars range of each other. So, but there's different steps to take depending on which calculation you want to use. Like if you have patents and you license out your patents, you collect royalties. This Q1 talks about it. Talk about the second item on that report again. Let's look at the 5 additional wells for 2022. I have talked about that before. As you can see, the timeline. There's the June. There's the 2022 drilling plan, which includes 5 additional wells for 2022. 2023, to also be compliant with the lease agreement on University Lands, will require 5 additional more wells. And I thought I'd point that out, with the 5 wells being part of the 2022 drill plan. Also of note is that there was $1 million loaned from Meta to Oilco for Q1, and this is to retain the lease. So this is to pay for the 2022 lease agreement with University Lands. So, they're paying the bills right now until the spinoff. I thought I'd like to bring that up. So the lease fees for the Oro Grande for 2022, at least for Q1, being $1 million. It's a big hunk of land. I mean, it's 134,000 acres you're leasing. So it is a low lease, though. In terms of leases, it's pretty low. Again, the lease is not the same as mineral rights. You can buy mineral rights and you can buy land. A lot of land doesn't have mineral rights to it. But if somebody has mineral rights to your land, they have to get it somehow, and that's where the lease comes in. So there are 3 different entities, really. When we talk about sale of the assets, we're not talking about the lease. That's kind of negligible. We're talking about sale of the oil and gas minerals. We're talking about the mineral rights, which is not the same as land sales, which is not the same as lease. So I hope that clears it up, but it looks like this $1 million was allocated to uphold the lease agreement. The fees involved with University Lands. As far as the meta materials section goes, here's your 6 pillars. I believe this to be the 6 warp drives that the man with 2 last names was talking about. Gardner Wade. And George Palicaris, when they posted that picture of the Star Trek ship, and they said warp drives, and then there's 6. Here's 6 right now. Let's read those 6. They are all basically nanoweb transparent EMI shielding. In take 1 of this video, I said, yeah, Roller Pigeons is banking on the fact that there will be a mass Carrington event and all the electronics will go bye-bye, and thus our debt will be cleared to 0, and all your, crypto stuff will be wiped out because of the Carrington event. But if you had this EMI shielding, then perhaps your crypto will be safe and your debt won't be wiped out. Yay! Debt for everyone. Also, let's take a look at how de-icing is at number 6. I found that interesting. Also, they talk about transparent antennas and 5G. They're separate categories. And when I think about the transparent antennas and the de-icing, I think about those lines on the back of your windshield. On the rear windshield, those lines. Sometimes your external car antenna is also that line. With the application of nanoweb, you won't need those lines anymore. So that kind of like, in my opinion, they all kind of dovetail together, but here they have clearly defined out those niches. I know Les Kowalski has talked about that, how you really get into having an advantage over the competition with niches. So here, I think we're starting to define out niches. It's not one application, but there's different niches for NanoWeb, which I think is cool. That kind of like dovetails right into what he was talking about with his recent ARC podcast, which pertains to the metamaterials company, the ARC. But if you notice, this de-icing is number 6. And we have different dimensions. We have, a 6-sided object is a cube. That's a 3-dimensional object. If it's 4th dimensional like this, it's called a tesseract. And if it's 5th dimensional, then it looks like this. It's the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And also, 666 is the number of the beast. But that was based on this number of the beast, 6 to the 6 to the 6th. Which would equate, that's a big number, which equates to the number of universes in existence. Which, in this book, 6 to the 6 to the 6th, number of the beast, which is kind of like, number of the beast is like the Excel saga of science fiction. In terms of Heinlein books, I rather liked it because it was very 4th dimensional, 4th wall in terms of science fiction. It was like Excel saga. There were notable characters in there, such as Pixel the cat. So I find it interesting how they're defining more niches with the NanoWeb in this Q1 statement. They also talk about the ceramic coatings in this as well. I know George talked about ceramic coatings with plasma fusion. And it was a recent tweet to Elon Musk of the universe. And he was talking about the ceramic coatings on Starlink satellites to help against radiation. And radiation's a big thing in space. Radiation's a big thing on Mars. Perhaps these ceramic coatings can help. Ceramic is a good insulator. That's why we send like 486s were used in satellites for very long, because they were like durable little tanks against the radiation that the sun produces. Fun fact. That's, I guess, what being in ham radio does. You get to know this sort of stuff. And plus, like, in the ham radio clubs, there were like people that was their whole thing was putting messages in old satellites. There was a time where you could like put messages on satellites with the ham radio, and it's much outdated now, but people would do that. And they were nice messages though. It wasn't like funny meme messages today. There were two kinds. But I'm sure people had grudges. It was kind of like the Ingress, I guess, back in the day before Ingress, was people would try to put their own messages on the satellites with the 486. This concludes today's episode of May 10th, 2022. I will see you soon. Goodbye.